welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to our latest episode of the Procurement Pivots podcast. It's great to have you join us once again. So I'm Donna Bowden, you should know by now, and I'm here with my co-host Laura Sellers, who today I understand is going to take us back through one of the previous episodes, and she's chosen a really important topic which we covered quite early on, and that was the topic of impact. And my understanding, Laura, is you're going to talk us through kind of some of the team coaching piece that you support businesses with, but with a particular focus on impact. And I believe that you're going to be talking us through a 7-step framework. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. And yeah, it's definitely a core focus of my work and has been in 2025 especially, and 2026 is shaping up to be that as well. So team impact in procurement is a huge part of teamwork in itself, but also I think you've got to really have an idea of meeting your team where they are to be able to have the impact that they want. So I really enjoy supporting procurement teams with this. I've worked with teams in different countries on different topics, and there are some similarities, but every team's unique, right? So yeah, the 7-step framework that I use is something that helps me to do that.
Amazing. So just out of curiosity then, so when you are delivering this work for businesses around impact, are they coming to you specifically asking for help around impact, or is that kind of just the result of the conversations that you end up having with them?
No, they don't come to me specific. It's a great question. They don't come to me specifically for impact, but it's always an outcome that they want to have alongside the things that they're coming to me with. So I guess to introduce my 7-step framework, and I'll take you through every step, is it's a very memorable word because it's called Procure. So I've owned this framework for a while now, and I pull strands from it depending on what people need. But it's a great 7-step framework to walk through in terms of getting the team to the outcome that they want. So the first step of it is purpose. It's from the word procure. So the P is purpose. So when they come to me, it's usually a director of procurement, CPO, head of procurement who has a team, and they're wanting a particular problem to be solved or goal to be achieved. So with the purpose part of it, we just start looking at what do we actually want to get out of this, and before I even suggest what the solution might be, we just take a look at what's going on. So where we would start is, how many are in the team? Is it just a select few members of the team? Like, is it the procurement leadership team we're dealing with? Is it the entire procurement team? And that will then also dictate the type of intervention and support that they want. So there's 3 different types of routes that I might suggest to them. So let's say a CPO comes to me and they want some support for their procurement team because they've just gone through a restructure and they're trying to find a way forward. And so it might be that they say, I want you to do something with my leadership team. And so if it's a smaller team, it is very much a lot more of a team coaching approach, where it's less of a skills training approach. It's more of a problem solving, goal focused, results focused session. And they're always incredibly interesting, those ones, because there's always a lot of dynamics in the team. And again, it depends on what they've done. And then back to that scenario, they've been through a restructure. It might be that they've identified that there's an upskill that's needed for the wider team. So it might be that we then do a session that's for a wider team that is more skills focused. They want to learn about a particular thing like influence, or they want to establish their values as a team, their identity as a team. So they're all such interesting topics, but
Yeah.
I think, that first step is always about, why are we here? Why are you coming to me? What's the problem? Where do you want to get to? So that's then when I would suggest the type of intervention. So there was the leadership team coaching, the wider team upskilling support, and then the other one might be more of a selected group from a wider procurement team who have a particular commonality or trait that they want to work through. So yeah, so for example, if they feel like their perfectionism tendencies are getting in the way of procurement excellence, that's a great group session to do. So it's very varied, and which I love.
Yeah.
Absolutely love. But I think that the first step is so, so important, is that why are you coming to me? What do you think you need? What's the challenge you're trying to overcome, or the result you're trying to get to? And then we decide on the type of intervention.
Yeah, interesting. And you said often it might be following, for instance, a restructure. Are there any other patterns that you see in terms of like the types of procurement leaders that are coming to you, kind of asking for this help and support?
Again, such a great question. In terms of like trends, it's hard because when you say, if I look back at the ones I've been doing in the last year, they're in different industries, but I think that they're at a transition point. Is one commonality I could bring for all of them. So it's not necessarily a restructure. There's just something that's changed. So in the public sector in the UK, it was around the Procurement Act, a big change there, and they want to establish some new behaviours within the team. So I would definitely say that transition point is something that leads them to say, oh, we'd like to work with you, because we've got this particular challenge. So and to be fair, I would say the other commonality is that the team have reached a point that they've never been to before in terms of team impact. It might be that they've got a new CPO, or they've got a new sponsor in the exec team. They've been given some budget to get some support, and so they're at this new stage where they're like, we've not been here before. We just need to take some space to talk about it as a team. So that's the strategy sessions that I help facilitate, which are always a lot of fun and really interesting. So yeah, it's all very varied. There isn't one size fits all workshop. I don't roll out the same workshop every time. I do a lot of pre-work with the teams, a lot of pre-workshop interviews as such. Like, it sounds a lot more formal than what it is. It's just more me getting to know the team. So when we get started in the session, we hit the ground running.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And would you say, like, with the procurement leaders that are engaging you, have they already got the insight from the team as to kind of what they think they need, or is it typically the leader making this call, right, I think we need this help and support, and then communicating it later down the line once it's all agreed?
I think it's a bit of both. It depends on the team, and it also depends on the team makeup. Like, if they are a global procurement team where you've got procurement clusters in different parts of the world, that it might be that they've got a need in one particular area, but they want to support the entire procurement team with it. So and that's where I guess the second step, that we've led into quite nicely, is the R of procure, is about reality. What's going on right now? What's happening in the team? Because the CPO often sees things coming down the line, and they're very seasoned, they're very experienced, or they've come from somewhere else, and they want to be able to build their team up. They always think about, how can we elevate the team? So I will always ask questions about what's going on with the team, and sometimes I will say to them, have you asked them what they need? Because actually what we think they need might not be what they think they want. And sometimes what they actually do need is in between the two, between what they want and need. So that's the second stage, really, so you've got to think about, why is it I'm coming? So the first stage, why are we coming? The purpose of why we need the support. And the second one is, what's going on in the team right now? You have to meet your procurement team where they are and what they're going through. And particularly in times of restructure, or following times of restructure, that's incredibly important.
And how, like, you might be coming to this at a later point, but sort of typically, particularly if it has been around a restructure or change, like, how well do the individuals receive the fact that they're getting this coaching? Because I'm guessing there's going to be some quite different responses from different team members in terms of engagement and participation.
Yeah, such a great question. I have had experiences where depending on where the team are, how well they receive the support. I think it's, I think there's two things that have happened that have probably made it really interesting. And one of the exercises that I've used that's been very impactful with a particular one was a timeline activity. It's a really simple tool, but following COVID and all the remote working, the team basically went through their entire history as a team to remind them of what was good about being in this team
Mm.
over the years. What have we lost? What have we
Yeah,
gained? And then they realized when they stood back and looked at this timeline, they were like, wow, we were having the most fun when we did our team nights out together. We've not done that for
yeah,
3 years,
yeah,
and so I think, um, how back to your question about how they've received it, some people might be feeling quite disillusioned from all the change. So, you'll always
mm,
get people in a team who aren't as bought into it. They just see
mm,
any workshops as fluffy stuff. But
yeah,
I see that as a challenge, yeah, to understand what's important to them, what do they want to get out of
yeah,
it. And then and I've had others where when there has been a misalignment between um when the team are still coping with the fallout from a restructure,
mm,
and where the message has been, oh, we've moved on from that now. And actually, no, the team haven't.
yeah,
And so sometimes, depending on what we're doing in the session, I'll give space to that if it needs to be addressed. Because
mm,
I think, and this I guess I'm leaning into my systemic coaching knowledge here, where, these changes and ruptures in teams will stick around for a long time if we don't address them. Like
mm,
papering over the cracks doesn't always help. So it's not about focusing on
yeah,
the negative. It is
yeah,
about moving forward. And that brings us on to stage 3 of opportunity of the Procure model. Um, but it's just around, you've got to let some of the stuff come out so that they can process it and move
yeah,
on. So, I've seen it in both sides, but it's important to understand, again, meeting the team where they are.
yeah,
So important.
yeah. Brilliant. So that's your third part of the framework, opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, always looking towards an outcome and a
yeah,
solution, and to go, what can we move through? Because when you have gone through difficult times,
mhm,
that sometimes people can't see that there are
yeah,
good opportunities out there, and to work better together as a team. So we will always look at, well, what can we commit to? What
yeah,
are we going to do? What opportunities can we see? And I use different types of tools to help determine what those opportunities are.
yeah. And again, would you always have the leader in the room with during those kind of, whether it's a workshop or a coaching session, or would sometimes there be kind of, group activity maybe without that leader present?
Yeah, I've had both. I've the situations when the leader's been in the room, there's already a really good team atmosphere.
Yeah.
I've seen some amazing examples in the last year of teams that have brilliant psychological safety, where you can see
Mm,
that relationship between the leader and the team is genuine, it's
mm,
positive, and they're there addressing the difficulties that exist in the
yeah,
team. I say difficulties, not deal breakers, but just things that they just want to get over. But
yeah,
there's such safety within the team. It just means
yeah,
that they achieve more in results.
mm,
So when they have been in there, it has been very good. When they haven't been in there, stuff does come out. The team
yeah,
do talk about things. So
yeah,
rather than when that does happen, again, I ask them how they want to address that, how they want to deal with it, because it's given them space to do so, but
mm,
also giving them the empowerment to deal with it. So rather than just using the session as a venting
yeah,
session.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Great. So what's step 4? Stage 4.
So stage 4, so we're on to the C of the Procure model, and that's challenges. So I've already
Okay.
alluded to this, but the challenges do tend to come out.
Mm,
I'm very perceptive when it comes to team dynamics. I really I get fascinated. I like
yeah,
team dynamics absolutely fascinate me, and so when it comes to the challenges, if I start to hear themes within the team, I'll ask them, what's going on here? Like, it
yeah,
sounds like there's something going on. Do we need to address this? Do we not? And I did forget to mention that at the start of any session, we do put some team ground rules in there. So we'll
okay,
agree, we will agree, what do we need to feel safe with each other? What do we need to feel
Yeah.
like we're going to get the most out of this session? What are we all committing to? So when it comes to the challenges, as long as that's been set up correctly, then they might feel safe to discuss it. So, and I talk
Mm.
about the word safe as if like it's not safe. It's just that it's just the word that we use, right? But it's around, is there space to talk about this stuff?
Yeah.
And so I remember I was in a team strategy session last year, and I could feel there was like people were skirting around a subject. So I just said, so this is the benefit of being an external facilitator, I guess, like understanding the context of procurement, but not being dragged into the politics myself.
Mm.
I basically said, look, guys, I can really feel there's something bubbling here. Am I wrong? Hold it lightly if I am, but we've
Yeah.
got time to talk about it if you'd like to. And they did, and it wasn't as bad as they thought it would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So it's that's where we assess the challenges and address them. Some of them we might park and decide it's not part
Yeah.
of the scope of the session, but
And
it's always valuable.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there. I was just going to say, obviously a lot of these sessions are following some kind of change and restructure. So from a challenge perspective, are there kind of, recurring challenges that you're seeing across different teams and different organisations, that I suppose ones that are coming through more regularly?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the classic team silos one, right? The category silos can always show up. I've seen it in many a session when there's one category over here, another category over
Yeah.
there, and they have different views of the same subject, or it's different for my stakeholders, it's different for me, but maybe they don't have the big interesting savings numbers.
Mm.
So sometimes depending on what the desired outcomes of the session are, we might bring that up as well. Where can we agree? Where can we learn from each other? Where can we support each other?
Yeah.
It depends on the scope of the session, but yeah, that is definitely something that I see often. Sometimes there's an element of tension, and so but I've been specifically briefed on that, and they want to address it. And then in other cases, when again in a positive sense, when the team psychological safety is there, they're so much more willing to be vulnerable and to tackle a problem
Mm.
together. So that perfectionism one I mentioned, brilliant workshop with a great team who just came ready to share, ready to
Yeah.
engage and go, oh, do you know what? This really holds me back
Mm.
from from signing off or from doing this
Yeah.
piece of work. And a lot of it is tied in with other subjects, such as influence, such as needing to have all the answers as procurement. We want to
Yeah.
show our worth and our value.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're the common ones.
Okay, so that brings us on to, I think, your you next. Are we on you?
We are on you. So that's number
Yeah.
5. So that's
Yeah.
stage 5 is understanding. So this is around understanding yourself and then understanding others. So this is where, like in any team, you get some really strong characters, you get some quiet characters, you get people who respond differently. You've got others who think, oh, I've seen this all before, and that's fine. I'd much rather have that honesty about, okay, you're a cynic in the room, that's fine, no problem. What's going to help you to get the most out of your time here today. So I always try and sort of give them some space to reflect, although not everybody likes to do that. So I have to sort
Mm.
of balance that a little bit. But just to help people understand their own role in the team, because I am so adamant and clear on my vision and my message and my purpose for doing the team coaching is around team impact starts from within. How a team interacts together is how your stakeholders and your suppliers, your exec, anyone will experience you as a team. So the
Mm.
more you have that team unity, the more the other stakeholders will feel the ripple effect of that. So I always give space to, what's going on for us here. Let's not focus on whether that person values you in the room for a second. How
Yeah.
do you value you?
Yeah.
And I think I definitely brought this up on a previous episode when actually, as we got down and we stripped it back, they kept saying, but I'm just a buyer. I'm just a buyer in a room full of directors. So it's around, okay, how can we elevate your confidence and your
Yeah.
mindset and your courage to go in there so that you're not thinking you're just a buyer?
Yeah.
Because if you're going in there thinking I'm just a buyer, you're going to minimize your voice,
Yeah.
and you're
Absolutely.
also, yeah, you're not gonna get the impact that you want. So yeah, that's where I always give space to the understanding selves bit. Self-awareness, we always talk about
Yeah.
it in procurement, how
Absolutely.
pivotal it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then that brings you on to step 6 of the
Yeah.
framework.
Yeah, that's the R, the second R in Procure, and that's about relationships. So about
Yeah.
team dynamics, about recognizing the dynamics for your stakeholders. And we can even use that previous example just then around, when you're walking into a room, where are you placing yourself in that dynamic with other people? Are you in the, well, I know best, you don't know anything, or you know everything, I don't, I'm trying to get a foot in the door. How you see yourself in those relationship dynamics and how you handle those dynamics is incredibly important. So I have a few tools that I share in most workshops, that like drama triangles and stuff like that, and that it always goes down a treat because people recognize themselves and others in it. So it's incredibly valuable, the relationships piece.
Brilliant. And then to conclude with step 7. So what's step 7 in your framework?
So it's the final letter in Procure, and that's evolve. So
Yeah.
this is around how do we move forward? How do we take action? What are we committing to? What's been useful about today? What part is still not clear for you? Because in a lot of cases, I do a series of workshops as well.
Yeah.
So it might be, what are we going to commit to before we meet again?
Yeah.
So, and it just really ties it up nicely. And it's just, I think what I like about it, other than it being such a memorable word, I think in terms of the Procure framework, is that it's like a toolkit. And it's like, okay, I've got a relationship problem, I'll dig back into relationships. Or actually, there's something not quite right with me, I'll dig back into understanding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like to try and follow it. Again, depending on what the teams are asking for, we might just focus on understanding as a session,
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, but it works, it flows nicely, and I think they're all really crucial parts of understanding team impact anyway. So I think, to be able to work through all of those in a session can be really useful.
Yeah. And would you say, kind of like thinking about the framework, is there a particular part of it that feels a bit trickier or a bit more challenging, either to deliver or for the participants?
um I would say is that it's in the U and the R, in the understanding and the relationships bit, because yeah, I am not naive to think that there are no tricky stakeholders out there. I've dealt with them. I've had my own, and I think the best thing we can do for ourselves to handle tricky stakeholders is to hold the mirror up to ourselves. And so in that understanding piece is, rather than focusing on what that person's behavior is to think about, okay, how am I responding to this? Because we can control that. We can't control how somebody else receives our communication. Because we can tailor our message as much as possible, and we should do. We have the responsibility to do that. But communication lands in the eyes and the ears of the receiver of that communication. So that's why we have to adapt it. But also, we can't control what's going on in that person's day, what other stresses they've got going on, what targets, what objectives they've got. So yeah, in terms of the trickiness, there's a reason why we don't start with the you, not just because it's later on in the
Yeah.
framework, but it's just around to be able to build that trust in the team. Once we get to the understanding point, they're more open and willing to share.
Yeah. So look, we know we've got quite a lot of senior procurement leaders that listen and tune in to the podcast regularly. Some of them may well be leading teams right now. Some of them may have kind of had team coaching delivered to their teams, maybe some not. But what are the signs, would you say, that kind of could tell a leader that actually their team could really benefit from some kind of team coaching support?
Yeah, it's a great question again, and I think there's probably 3 points here to think about. So I guess trigger points. First of all, if there's a recurring pattern in your team, you just keep coming back to the same stuff, same something different day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's and you can see it's holding the team back. So that's a great one to say, look, we want to address it as a team. It's a problem for us, or it's a challenge for us.
Yeah.
Let's see how we can try something different. So that's a great point. The second one is, when you've come through that transition, while it's good to be back to normal, it's that recognizing not everybody responds to change in the same way. Like
Yeah.
some people take a lot longer to overcome it and to deal with the fallout of it. So
Mm.
if there has been a restructure and somebody's ended up getting a job that somebody else didn't, they're both going to respond to that in different ways. So having a session to help recenter the team can be really, really beneficial. Doesn't mean that we iron out all the air out all of the dirty laundry, nothing like that. It's just about recognizing we need something to reset. We
Yeah.
need something to reset the team. And then third of all, and I love this one especially. I love all of them, but I love this one especially because it's that 1% better mindset, that marginal gains. We want to be a high performing team. We're already good. We're
Yeah.
already great. We're even excellent. We want to get even better. And
Mm.
when people come with that energy, it's amazing
Yeah.
what you can achieve in the room. So
Mm.
yeah, it does depend on team culture, organization culture, but to have someone hold that space for you who understands the context of procurement, but can take you out of the weeds of it for a day and then put you
Mm.
back in is really valuable. So they're the three things for me.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, I think sometimes businesses they will try and address these kind of challenges internally, won't they? But
Mm.
there can be a real benefit in bringing an impartial kind of, third party in to kind of to facilitate these sessions. Like,
Mm.
how, what's your experience of kind of how it can be beneficial, I suppose, to bring an outsider in to kind of facilitate?
Yeah, I think, I think one of the biggest benefits is that if it's an internal person, the team are always going to be worried about the interests of the person who's
Yeah.
facilitating. It can be done, and I see some people do it really well. But I think there's always well, what influence are they under? Who are they going to go back and report to if we say this thing in the room? Whereas having someone external who might have relationships with people in the business,
Yeah.
but who isn't ingrained in that culture can be really beneficial. And then also, I actually got asked the same question by the L&D person who was sponsoring the work for a procurement team, saying, "Look, I could facilitate a session. Why should I bring you in?" And we had a great chat, and it was because I do this with procurement teams in particular. I can draw on my experience through that and what I've seen other teams do well.
Mm.
And again, I'm not impacted by company politics at all.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the work that you do is absolutely incredible. And I know it's just made such a massive, massive difference to so many businesses and so many teams. So if anyone is listening to this thinking we need a bit of Laura in our team right now, how can people get in touch and what could the next step be for them?
Sure. So the first step is always just to have an informal chat to tell me what's going, give me a download of where you're at as a team, what you'd like to get out of it. But you can reach me. My website is www.coachingforprocurement.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, the first step is always to have an informal chat and then we take it from there.
Brilliant. Well done for everything you do. It's absolutely amazing. And I know a lot of the people involved have felt incredibly lucky to have your support. So yeah, it's brilliant. Anything else you'd like to add before we finish up today?
Oh yeah, yes. There is one thing. No, just you'd be surprised at the budget that exists, in an organization for this sort of work. I understand that, things are tight in this time of the economy, but if you're showing that you have a particular output that you want to get out of the facilitation, it's the impact that it has, like the benefits to the team and to the business. So always ask. I back in my early days of business, so many people used to fund the coaching personally, but most of the time now, I'd say 80% of my clients get it funded by the business.
Mm.
So there is budget in many
Yeah.
cases. Please always ask. Don't think that they won't invest in procurement because my business is seeing, that's not the case. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that something you can support them with, kind of helping them to build the business case for actually bringing some team coaching in?
Yeah, absolutely. Or I have a conversation with the potential sponsor a lot of the
Yeah.
time, and just to see what's going on, and how do we tie that into the wider L&D strategy for the organisation? Yeah, so absolutely can help. Always helps to talk with the sponsor so that they're on board as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that with all of us, and hopefully that's been helpful for those of you listening in. So do get in touch with Laura if you need some team support. But we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.